Betting basketball. We bet on basketball. What's up, everybody? I am Joe Walkowski. I am a professional gambler, and you can tell 52 and 38 on the year. That's the best mark associated with the NBA since Mr. Price hurt his knee in the early 90s. And I know that yesterday we had some technical difficulties. I mean, cables, they're going to break. It happens, but this cable, it broke right before the show. And it does suck that I was really excited for yesterday's show. I was going to go in deep to maybe a little bit of what a certain college basketball program is doing correctly. And of course, I was going to mess with my man, Sammy Kotler, making a argument that a little bit of a bit that he was trying to get me to pay tribute to Rush Limbaugh on the air. And I mean, I do that every day when I take handfuls of pills. But enough of the dourness, enough of the, apologizing for yesterday, because we know that stuff happens. That didn't get dark. I take those pills to lighten up, Sam. Come on. But you know what? I got a new cord. I got a backup cord. I traipsed through the snow of Brooklyn like I was an extra in The Revenant today. And I did all that to get my cords situated. So I'm happy to be here coming to you with the most fun talk you can have analyzing the NBA. And I know our time change has kind of shifted us around. It's probably the most creative use of the time since Prince wrote the screenplay for Purple Rain. That's a deeper cut than Paul Pierce will get in his rookie year. Okay, let's get into it. But before we talk hoops, I do have a bullet point from the powers that be here at the Props Network. They want me to touch upon an argument I gave on TPN The Walk On, weekly podcast available wherever podcasts are found. And we just put out a fun clip about how to cheat at blackjack in a casino legally. That's fun. But a few weeks ago, I talked about what the best NFL bet was at the end of last season, because we all know Super Bowl odds, they come out the day after the other Super Bowl. And last year, what's the smartest thing you could have done? You could have seen a team that you knew they were going to address the QB position and pair it with decent receivers, a run game, and a quality defense. And if you bet on the Bucks early February last year, congratulations, you just had a 60-1 yield. And before even the Super Bowl happened, I had the Colts circled on my calendar. The Colts were 28-1. I love their coach. I love their offensive line. I love every part of their defense. And it seems like there's a lot of competencies that sort of complement each other. You have a good defense. You want to have a good O-line and a great running back. You have a great play caller. You want to have a quarterback who they're familiar or at least comfortable with. And today, Carson Wentz, the redheaded stepchild of Philadelphia sports, was traded to the Indianapolis Colts. Second and third round picks in future drafts, depending on how many snaps he plays. Gets to the playoffs, hits 75% of the snaps for the year. You're going to see those turn into a first round pick, at least in 22 or 23. I'm not sure which one. And however, that didn't really move the line here. The line moved from 28-1 to 20-1, and I still think there's great value in that. The Colts have the best coach in their division. They have the best defense in their division. And now I think we want to give Carson Wentz the benefit of the doubt. I know that's crazy. I know that's wild. But back when I started doing this analysis, I thought that, me going to school, getting an MBA was going to interfere with it. But I don't think that's been the case, because I've paid special attention to how these companies are run, how important fit is, and I think there's a little bit more attention that should be paid to Carson Wentz playing with Frank Reich. Carson Wentz playing behind a great offensive line with probably a top 5 pure running back next season. Jonathan Taylor, he's going to be one of the best players in the league next year. We all know it. He passes the eye test. And he owns a lot of pizza chains in Madison, Wisconsin, which is a pretty cool endorsement deal. So I see plus 2,000 for this team to win the Super Bowl at BetMGM. And don't you think it's kind of likely that Carson Wentz has a bit of a rejuvenation under Frank Reich. I mean, if you watched the Eagles last year, how could you even evaluate Wentz? They were a bad team, but they weren't a bad team because of anything he did. They had no protection. They were so injured on the offensive line. They couldn't even run certain plays. I mean, they're bringing back future Hall of Famer Jason Peters to play on every possible line position. I don't think that's how a great team is designed to run. And furthermore, let's talk about Wentz had no receivers to throw to. I mean, you're seeing Travis Fulgham from Old Dominion and the Lions practice squad come in and be your number one receiver. That will not be the case in Indianapolis simply because the talent level all over that team is so high. We saw them go 11-5 last year. We saw them act like a playoff threat when Phillip Rivers, he probably should have been out of the league since like 2018. So we have a good chance for Wentz to really make a statement. I already threw down on the Colts, and maybe they won't win the Super Bowl, but looking at all the NFL futures, which you can do with the Props Network tool, and shouldn't my nickname be the Props Network tool? You can see that if you're going to throw down money on the Super Bowl, I think the Colts are the best investment. And hey, what do I know about investing? I've only owned 200 shares of CCIV since December. Okay, so let's talk NBA. Yesterday, we had a great slate. We had a lot of back-to-back, so there were some key variables. And we know Thursdays, they don't have the most games, but there are some marquee matchups that are affected by some injury components. So let's start with Toronto, Milwaukee. This is a rematch of a game that I was on the wrong side of on Tuesday night. And all yesterday, like, I was walking around thinking, like, yeah, Milwaukee didn't cover, but you know what? 100 times out of 100, I am going to pick them against Toronto. They're spinning out. I know they don't have Drew Holiday right now, but Milwaukee's not this bad. And this is an interesting matchup because OG Anunoby is coming back to the fold for Toronto. He has been out for a few weeks now, but we also saw Kyle Lowry have a sprained ankle on Tuesday night. And maybe that's not a problem for most NBA players, but we do love Kyle Lowry for nothing else because he is old and fat. And I think he might be a little bit hamstrung by that ankle injury. That being said, I do like Milwaukee here. I do not think that Milwaukee played terrible on Tuesday night. Really, like if you watch that game, Toronto got hot at the right time. They had an excellent fourth quarter run, and they sort of distanced themselves with Milwaukee because Milwaukee's fatal flaw is that it's hard for them to generate buckets when the going gets tough. That's why I want to see Middleton be like the number one option, and Giannis kind of moved into the post as a sort of like early stage Kobe Shaq thing. And you see this opened at 6.5. It's still hanging out around 6.5, and I have it 6.5. Now, with Lowry being on the injury report, I think that, Milwaukee might be able to just sort of run him over the gym. Dog. OG Anunoby over 12.5 points tonight. I was just about to get to that. That's one of my, there's not a lot of games, but there's some great prop values tonight. OG 12.5 points. You can see it here. That's first in my notes. My handwriting looks like a serial killer. So OG, his player props are, he averages 14.6 points a game on the season. Tonight, his player prop line is 12.5. And if Lowry's banged up, you're going to see a little bit more of some damage going on to a little bit more usage rolling onto OG. And I think that's a great pick. I think that they're kind of using him in an interesting way. He's scheduled to start at power forward, which is kind of a DeMar DeRozan move. It's cool to see DeRozan go to San Antonio, and still San Antonio's usage of DeMar DeRozan is being used to help his old team, Toronto. I think that's just a really cool wrinkle. And Krishan, come on, hang out with us on YouTube. I see you're watching on, I think that's Periscope. Get out of that submarine. Get onto the modern platform. But if you're on Twitter, throw the Walkowski a follow, huh? Okay, so yeah, I love that OG prop. I like Milwaukee here, -6.5. I also think the under here is 235.5. That's a little bit too high for me. I see all sorts of money on this under, so I am going to join the whale party and spear me a harpoon at this under. Yeah, you see 235 and a half. Milwaukee's been playing some really fast-paced ball. I know they even got Phoenix, who's been skewing over every game, to go over against their game late last week. But here, I like Milwaukee. I like the under, and I like OG over 12 and a half points. I think, Milwaukee's not going to lose twice to Toronto. There are certain teams that can dominate Milwaukee, but just given the fact that Siakam's not quite been Siakam, that Lowry's playing on injury, and that Anunoby's still adjusting to like maybe a different way of being utilized as he has been throughout his entire basketball life, I think the pressure's on Milwaukee to dole out an ass kicking. And I mean, same circumstances as Tuesday. Milwaukee has that ass kicking in them. I think we see it tonight. I think I'm throwing down on it. And there are some monkey knife fight picks on this game. That's a fun interface. They gave me a nice little match, and you can go to monkeyknifefight.com for it. I have Giannis over 31 and a half points paired with Siakam under 21 and a half. So right there, I think that is a good play right there. The over on Giannis, the under on Pascal. And, you know, this Bucks team is flying under the radar. They tend to play well on national television. And I think we're going to see that tonight. I mean, maybe these teams, like, I wish Milwaukee could be like Toronto. I mean, you see Drew Holiday go out and they struggle. I mean, people go out for Toronto all the time, and like maybe they don't have the same track record for success, but new players, they come into the fold and they make solid contributions to that roster. And that's the type of basketball I like, and I will be going against it tonight. There's some fun trends here. Bucks are 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 coming off double-digit losses. And some stats, they're so intricate and specific, you can't help but just sort of laugh at them. Did you know that Toronto is 1-7 in their last 8 Thursday games? Me neither, but hey, that's what we're going with. Milwaukee, the under, OG and the over. Let's party. Now, this sucks, right? Brooklyn and Lakers tonight. We have no KD. We have no Anthony Davis, so probably the last 2 guys besides LeBron to hold the best player in the league torch are out of this one. And you even see Kyrie is on the injury report a little bit. I think he's going to go. He's going to have that back tightness. And what's the line on this one? I saw it at 3 for the Lakers. And we can talk about the over here too, because I see that over is at 230.5. Okay. I like that. I like that under. And let's see that spread, Sammy boy. We see this is 2.5, 3, depending on where you go. And y'all know I love the Nets, but I'm going to go with the Lake show here because even though Anthony Davis is out, I think the injury might have some secondary benefits for that team. Like, I know it's a small sample size, but Kuzma's been really good. Gasol's been the best he's been so far this year. And Montrezl Harrell is really becoming a nice player for that team. I think there were some interesting things with Montrezl Harrell and his player props tonight, right? So, Sam, if you would be so kind as to pull up the Montrezl Harrell over for rebounds. I think it's 7.5 plus 110. On the year, Montrez averages 6.5 boards, but he only plays 24 minutes a game. We know that the other bigs in this game, they're going to be DeAndre Jordan, Marc Gasol, and I don't think there's really going to be a lot of hustle from those 2 dinosaurs. This is Markelle Fultz's opportunity to go out there, rack up the ribbies. And you see the points line, 14.5. I'll probably stay away from that one. If you click over to the rebounds one right there, he's using BetMGM because they're excellent. You see, just show more. He's right under there. These are actually listed in alphabetical order, which it took us 5 weeks of doing shows to figure out. We are silly over here, but we got it. Montrezl Harrell, 8 boards, plus 110. Given that he's putting up 6.5 boards in 24 minutes, given that he's playing against DeAndre Jordan and really a pretty limited slate of bigs for Brooklyn, even though it's like we know there's going to be long rebounds every time Brooklyn plays, this is a game where there is no match on that Brooklyn roster for Harrell's hustle. Can you believe how well I was at saying Harrell's hustle? That was difficult. I pulled it off. And yes, I am a big fan of Montrezl Harrell. He's probably the guy most well positioned to actually go into the gym with LeBron. There's a lot of LeBron teammates, but I think Markel's like the first, Montrez is the first one who's ever been able to like get through a whole workout with LeBron. He's got that Karl Malone frame. He's got that energy. And these Lakers supporting cast, they're really great basketball players. The fact that you're like adding Gasol, Schroeder, Harrell off the scrap heap, those are all guys with the ideal pedigree to be a part of a winning basketball team. And hey, we knew Anthony Davis was going to be out at times this year. He's always out anyway. And I can't think of a guy whose frame is more ill-suited to the kind of tough turnaround that the NBA forced the Lakers and Heat to have. So I love Harrell here. He's going to step into the fold. The Lakers, their offseason moves showed me that they planned for this, and I think I will see confirmation of that hypothesis tonight. I like the Lakers. I like the under. I like Harrell over 7.5 ribbies. That means rebounds if you're not cool. Okay, so we have one more game tonight. We have, before we get into the other game tonight, Montrezl Harrell's like, his basketball reference page is wild. He's such an efficient player. If you look at his player comps, there's no real correlation to anyone who's played anything like him. Like their algorithm compares him to like Alex English and Mark Aguirre. And those were sweet shooting swingmen from the 80s. Montrezl Harrell is a ball of muscle and heart in the best case scenario for Isaiah Stewart's career. So I just, that made me laugh as a diehard NBA guy. And I think if you guys are watching, you are as well. So if you like this stream, subscribe on YouTube. If you have a question, ask it along. I got one more game to get through tonight. But before we do, I have another monkey knife fight for that one. It is combined fantasy points. Kyrie, Harden, and LeBron over 155. I got $10 on that plus 250. So without a lot of stakes, I'm still finding a way to eat, my friends. That's a fun interface. So go check out Monkey Knife Fight. They will give you a deposit match. Sam, give me that code in the chat. I will share that with our wonderful and illustrious viewers. I think it's Walk On, but I just want to confirm that. Walk On or Props HQ. Those are the promo codes for Monkey Knife Fight. It's really fun to analyze these player prop bets, and that finds a way to like just kind of turn them into a simple to easy to use interface. It's a cool way to gamble. I think you guys will enjoy it. And again, it's legal where a lot of states where betting isn't. So if you want to go there, if you want to get your deposit matched, Walk On or Props HQ, maybe that'll be a nice way to spend your Thursday. I'm snowed in. Maybe you guys are as well. Dang, you guys know I like the stupid jokes. I can't believe I didn't say I'm snowed in like Edward. Okay, so our last game tonight, Miami at Sacramento. Miami's on a back-to-back. If a full disclosure, I could say all my picks were going to be wrong last night. I was going to be wrong on that Miami game. I was backing them big against Golden State, and I'm going to back them on a back-to-back against Sacramento. Sacramento, they've kind of been giant killers. I really don't know where to rank them in terms of like the Western Conference hierarchy, but they do a lot of things right. However, they've got no Harrison Barnes tonight. They've got no Rashawn Holmes tonight. So I think that's going to actually wreak a little bit of havoc with their lineup. People are going to be playing slightly out of position, like almost across this entire rotation. And that being the case, if you don't have Rashawn Holmes, I think that bodes pretty well for Bam Adebayo. If you don't have Harrison Barnes, I mean, what is Miami except a collection of like really tough to guard, interchangeable swingmen? And sure, the Kings have a great backcourt, but I think that Miami's kind of had to come to Jesus about playing with more intensity, giving an effort all throughout the game. So against Sacramento, off the heels of a pretty dispiriting loss and throwing in the variables of two underrated but key components of that Sacramento team, I'm going to take Miami here. So this line is pretty close. You pull up that line, baby. So this line is, it opened at Heat 2.5, and now it's basically to a pick. And the back-to-back thing, that's scary, but it hasn't had as much weight as you would think this year. The fact that it's a home game for Sacramento is scary, but again, that also hasn't had as much weight this year. So I'm going to go with Miami. I think that rotation is going to be a hard thing for Sacramento to overcome, and every time I think that Sacramento is going to overcome these things and is going to face some challenges, they overcome them. Like, they kicked the Clippers' ass, and I was on the wrong end. They kicked the Nuggets' ass, and I was on the wrong end. And, hey, if they're able to beat the Heat with essentially just Marvin Bagley and their collection of great guards, more power to them. But I really think that their players being out is going to just set Miami up for success. Along those lines, though, I love you heard the argument I had about why Montrezl Harrell was going to see an increase in usage rate. We talked about his rebounds per game, his points per minute, and the same exact argument is 100% in play for Marvin Bagley tonight. He's getting like 11 and I think 7 in roughly like 20 minutes per game, and without Holmes, you're going to see a lot more usage out of him. And those lines do not reflect the expected uptick in minutes. They do not reflect Holmes' absence. So I think I saw Bagley at 12.5 points and maybe 6.5 rebounds. And I really love both of those things, especially because because it's a back-to-back for Miami, right? It's a high-scoring Kings backcourt. So I think that I'm pretty confident in that over. I see a lot of money going in on that over. So if we see Bagley 12.5 points, he's averaging 11 on the year. He's going to be incorporated so much more in that offense. And let's see those ribbies, Sammy man. I got to stop calling them ribbies because that's what you call RBI. So yeah, 7.5 plus 110. Yeah, I like both these 7.5 plus money bets for both Harrell and Bagley, two guys who affect the game through just being near the rim and doing their jobs. And there are variables that are going to make them better at their jobs tonight. So I expect them to exceed their season averages by more than 1 or 2, given the increase in minutes. If you're able to do like a projection based on their playing time, it would really strongly suggest both these overs. I did the same thing. That's why I'm bringing it to you, and I feel good about that. So I will hang out for another 5 minutes to take any questions, comments, concerns. In the meantime, my picks for today, I like Milwaukee. I like the under in that game. I like the Lakers. I like the under in that game. I like Miami. I like the over in that game. And as far as player props go, I like the OG over. I like of points. I like the Harrell over points and the pros big picks. Come on. The pros big pick tonight is the props for the big fellas. Harrell and Bagley, they were coming of age at a time when bigs weren't really developed. They weren't really viewed as like important parts of certain NBA teams. So the pros big pick tonight, Bagley and Harrell over rebounds. I like both of them. American muscle will be on the most display this side of this podcast. Ooh, I'm looking jacked. Okay, so I will hang out. Any questions, send them here. Otherwise, I'm going to start daydreaming about the poker game and the basketball bets I will be indulging in tonight. Can't wait. I know that, our friend from St. Louis, I've missed him. A lot of you guys have followed me over from the 2 o'clock time slot to the 5 o'clock one. We got to tell our Serbian friend under the arch to make the same journey. All right. So, yeah, I think I'm going to be back in the Colts for the Super Bowl. I think Frank Reich is going to get the most out of Carson Wentz. And tonight, I'm going chalk. I like all the favorites. I'm following the money on the over-unders. And it's 3 games, but they're 3 pretty good games, and they're national televised. Because I don't know about you guys, if I'm going to watch those streams, it really takes me into some strange territory with both creepy sites and HDMI cables. Joe Harris over 13.5 points. No. Joe Harris has been really hot. Joe Harris has been incorporated into this offense, but again, this lineup hasn't played together quite that much. So when there's Irving and Harden with the rest of the net supporting cast, they've been a little bit off kilter. And just because of how hot he's been recently and the fact that, I mean, the Lakers, they have a lot of really good perimeter defenders, and I think that that roster is more well suited to guard a shooter like Joe Harris than they are a ISO guy like James Harden or Kyrie, even though Kyrie's been a pretty interesting player recently and Harden's actually kind of evolved his game the way you would want him to. I'm going to lean under on Joe Harris. It's a correction game. I think they're going to maybe not run their set offense throughout the entire thing. And yeah, maybe the shots aren't for him like they normally would be. So apologies if you're already on that, Krishan. Thank you for watching. And I'm sorry I can't endorse your pick. I really want to, but I watch a lot of the Nets, and doesn't that seem too easy? He's been getting so much run. He's been putting up such big numbers that he's got to be Joe Harris at least one of these games. Those are just my thoughts. I'm happy if you guys beat me, because hey, if we stimulate the conversation and you guys end up right and wrong, and I'm wrong, that means you still got something out of the stream. Well, all right, this has been a fun show. I am rolling around tomorrow. Maybe I'll get you something on Saturday, and I will definitely be here on Sunday morning previewing that slate. Monday and Tuesday. Then I got a little bit of a vacay, but I'm looking forward to those 3 days. I hope you guys will be there with me. And if you're in Texas, I hope you stay safe. And if you like tennis, you got to check out the Australian Open videos on our YouTube from the great one, Jamoke Davis. I mean, I'm getting into tennis over the past few years. I love riding my bike to the US Open, and I love gambling on tennis. It's fun. And Jamoke, he's an expert. I love following his analysis, and he's really kind of unlocked the game. And if I benefit, I think you guys will benefit. Jimmy Butler, double double. Let's do it. Let's party with that one. Who's guarding Jimmy on Sacramento? Is it Hield? I don't think so. Is it Harrison Barnes? He's out. So you're going to see Jimmy getting free throws, distributing that rock. And I think the way for them to really beat the Kings is to have those young shooters moving off the ball, making Fox and Hield and Halliburton work on the defensive end. And that suggests to me a lot of passing, a lot of distributing from Jimmy Buckets. So yeah, I disagree with you on one. I'm with you on the other. All right. We had a blast. I'm Joe Walkowski. I'm here for the Props Network all the time. But until next time, this is Joe Walkowski walking off.